it isn't a coincidence that many of us here on the panel have very similar perspectives. I think it's because these perspectives are very essential and very important to where we're trying to go. And therefore, there may be some repetition, but I'm going to try and put things in a different kind of framework that maybe will help us even better to understand what the previous speakers have been trying to say. You know, the way we sing, and the way we dance, and the way we eat, and the way we talk, and the way we walk, and the way we do everything, throw away our foods, build our houses. I lived up on the mountainside. I opted out with my chickens and my poetry, but I came back. The way we did that, it all is, in a way, an expression of what we believe and what we value, how our priorities are. It's a way of showing what we consider is honorable or dishonorable, what we think is achievable or not achievable, what we consider to be sustainable or unsustainable. All the choices we make in the material world reflect these things. And whether it's you or me or the person in China or the person in wherever in the world, we contribute to a formation of cultures and societies by our individual choices. But of course, the interesting thing is we don't have 6.7 billion different cultures and societies in the world. And that's because our choices, the way we act, they blend together in patterns and trends. And those are constantly changing, right? They're constantly, as has been so clearly expressed earlier, been modifying and evolving. And that's what I'd like to look at. I'd like us to think for a minute about the changes and where we are today. Because I believe very sincerely that it's not only a question of how to get out of the problems we're in now. We have to look at what is the process of humanity. Is this something new? Is this something we've been through before? And how can we move forward? And I think one interesting aspect to remember is that it's not only our personal choices, it's our collective understandings of things that grows and evolves. For example, our understanding of social justice, as Ken Jackson referred to, has changed. You know, in the past we could sit in a family and we could feel the pain, we could see the tears, we could understand how our sisters and our brothers and our mothers and fathers felt. Well, today, you know, if an earthquake happens in China, you know, you're crying for those poor people buried under the rubble. You know what's happening in Haiti. You see what Katrina does in Louisiana. These things happen immediately. We are a part of them. The world has changed to become one family very quickly. And with that change, a lot of consequences, a lot of different approaches have to be considered. I would say that the evolution of human civilization has come to a point where we are at a stage of adolescence and just beginning to move into maturity. And I'll explain why I mean that. But when you look around you, there's a number of you who are just young people, still in adolescence. Those of us who've been through it and are grown up, we know it isn't so easy. We also know, if we've had kids, that watching them become mature adults is a process which demands a lot of pain, a lot of change and transformation, a lot of choosing new ways of doing things. You know, kids, they do it very spontaneously. They do things very selfishly. They do things very, very individually. When you become a grown-up, you have to think more collectively. You act more in groups and in relationship to other people. And this development of human civilization to a state of maturity demands of us the kinds of changes and transformations which has been mentioned by the panelists, especially by Tim Jackson. It requires that we find new ways of functioning together, where we don't throw stones at each other or kick each other or you know, grab the other person's thing and say, hey, this is mine, or say that I have all the natural resources just because I happen to grow up there or be this country. And this process of maturity, it has been called by a lot of names. But I like to think of the name which perhaps fits well into the pictures that Lewis was showing us, which relates to connected compassion, or a evolved or greater sense of empathy, or just call it unity, that we realize that what we're doing here affects the people everywhere else and vice versa. But this is not a simple process, this becoming mature, and we've all talked about different development, and we've related either to the CSD or the concept of sustainability. But I think we have to go a bit further, and I like to refer to this list, which I think is very useful because it's kind of challenging. We can talk about cosmetic changes here at the CSD. We can hope that governments and individuals and organizations will take small steps. But what it's really all about, if humanity is moving from adolescence to maturity, it's about redefining human relationships, how we are with each other on all levels, as family members, as members of a community, which is important, of course, but in a new way, ways we haven't perhaps seen before, on the level of national and global interaction. And the reorganizing of our affairs, it's not going to happen with small, little tiny plaster or band-aids. It means we really, as was also mentioned, have to rethink our systems. We have to think of new ways of economy, new ways of trade, new ways of existing, of sharing the resources that the world has, and also fundamentally reshaping the institutions of society. And that's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen during this CSD. It's not going to happen before Rio +20, but we have to work on it, and we have to be aware that our task is very large, but we have to start on the lower levels. And this refers to, I love the word you used, Tim, with flourish. I think flourish is a word that blossoms and is what it's all about. Here I would use the term empowerment, developing human abilities, and maybe using the whole art of consultation, which we're working at here at the CSDs as well as we can, but to help people learn to talk together, to really understand and listen to each other, to listen not to the material expression of what they're concerned about, but to the inner realities of what they mean. We were given a few questions to think about before we made these presentations, and one of them that I thought was very essential to this understanding of humanity coming of age has to do with human nature. And it's not the first time we've thought about people outside our own neighborhoods. I mean, we've been concerned for years, and civilizations in the past have also expressed concern and interest in helping and assisting other civilizations. But if you look back at history, some of you may be historians, it's interesting to see that the extent of civil participation of individuals involving themselves in the larger society has exploded in the last few centuries. I mean, and we've got a lot to thank. We've got internet, we've got telephones, we've got international travel. We have lots of reasons for that. But what it means is that perhaps humankind really isn't at heart basically greedy if we look at the human potential. Yes, there are sides of humanity which can pull us down. There are selfish, egotistical elements within us. But we also can see throughout history signs of generosity. We can fight a lot of wars. We can shoot people for oil and water. We can claim that, we're the only ones who have the right to things. But we also have to have the ability, and have exhibited it, to learn to be cooperative and collaborative.